So, good evening. Let us discuss about the issue of monsoons in India. So, before this, this is the 6th of June 2015 newspaper. On the issue of monsoons in India, there is certain analysis to what extent the prediction of rainfall and agricultural output are statistically related to each other. In this context, from 1976 onwards, so more than 9 times, the rainfall has dropped by 10%. In spite of dropping of the rainfall, the food production did not drop considerably. Only 2 times the food production has dropped. Now the hunger levels in the country did not increase considerably. So it means that there are certain important links which are missing. So the rainfall prediction, it provides for a general level of rainfall spread throughout the country. In this context, what is more important for India is the geographical distribution of the rainfall, how different areas are getting impacted, and the second thing is the timing of that particular rainfall. So when these monsoons are coming up, so these two are more important factors than the volume of the rainfall itself. Next is, it did not lead to much of hunger. The reason is this. In India, though the production has decreased, it did not lead to the reduction in the amount of the food reaching, or else, in spite of increase in production, there is no proper increase in delivery of the goods. Either way, it is right over here. So, the management of the food delivery system is more important than production. Now, if you see Letters to the Nation, a book is a compilation of Jawaharlal Nehru's letters to his chief ministers, where he has stressed more and more about the public distribution system and its importance. India is not a food deficit country inherently, but however many states try to keep their grains for themselves instead of giving it to national pool in fear of loss of grain, or else in fear of their people dying from hunger. So because of this hoarding of the grains, our state governments not giving the grain to the national pool, leakages in the PDS system, all these are responsible for weak food management in the country. So in this context, what we can have is this. The food management is one thing, especially the marketing, distribution, and also the end sale of the food. Everything has to be streamlined. I think the existing PDS reforms, they are in this particular direction. And India is mostly a monsoon dependent economy, especially agricultural economy is concerned. So in this context, our approach to fight this drought, etc., is mostly ad hoc. So in this, what we need to do? So a long-term plan instead of a short-term mitigation plan that is dependent on development of irrigation plan and organization of the groundwater potential are necessary. So here the question is this. Do water need to be made as a concurrent subject? This is one question. If you can answer, think about it. And interstate river water management is dismal in India. How we need to tackle that? Few days back, there was a question related to interstate river water management under Article 262, the role of the Supreme Court under Article 262, the river water tribunals and their problems, what the existing government's idea of permanent river water tribunal, try to go through that. And again, is groundwater being a common resource? Few rich people, they are exploiting to the maximum extent possible. So in this context, so the groundwater, can't we bring in something called any fees on the use of the groundwater by different people? So is a common resources, groundwater is a common resource. There has to be equitable use of this particular resource. Excessive exploitation has to come with a excessive amount of payment. Person who uses, he has to pay for that particular service. These are the issues which are related to it when we are talking about water management in the country. So, in India, two things which are important, very much connected. That is food management and next is water management. Water management is a long-term plan, and the food management is improving the delivery channels of the food and supply chain management. And the next is Suhasini Haidar's article. It is about the plan of Modi of visiting the China and outcomes of this particular China. So article goes like this. So what are the fault lines which are recently observed between India and China? And next is on political front. So what are the issues discussed with China and their outcomes? And what are the issues on economic front? So how the outcomes on economic front can be? So in that way, three ways this article can be organized. So what are the fault lines? The first one is line of actual control. Next is the subcontinent or in South Asia, what has happened, how the Chinese involvement is irritating India. And third thing is the South China Sea, how India is irritating China, other way around. So with regard to the line of actual control, so during Xi Jinping's visit in 2014, September 2014, so there was an incident across LOAC at Chumar, where there is a standoff for almost 3 months, which has obliged or else which has masked the importance of Xi's visit. Though both the players tried to downplay that particular incident, still it has made a irritant between both the countries. And within the subcontinent, one is the Sri Lankan issue, where the submarines of China came into the Indian Ocean. And the next is a Pakistani issue, the China-Pakistan economic corridor, where it goes through the Pak-occupied Kashmir, where the China is building a hydroelectric power plant and also a highway, that is Havelian Takot Highway. So these infrastructure projects, they are an irritant to India. And on the other hand, on the South China Sea, if you see the joint statement of India and United States of America, where it has clearly said freedom of lanes or freedom of navigation across the high seas. So that is indirectly indicated again as the China. And India and Japan joint statements too. So all this talks about something called as a South China Sea as a resource. I mean, China's sovereignty again as the South China Sea, which it claims is being questioned. And even engagement with Vietnam for India is the same issue. So these are the issues which we see as the fault lines of recent happenings. Then what are the political things which are discussed? So first one is line of actual control, stapled visas. And next is we discussed about people-to-people contacts, hydrological data. And next is we discussed related to terrorism and state-to-state contacts. So these are the things which we can talk about. So the line of actual control, no proper improvement has happened. So from 1993 onwards, for 10 years, for every 10 years, we brought one or the other important agreement on a line of actual control. The P.V. Narasimha Rao era, the agreement on maintenance of peace and tranquility along the LOC in India and China border areas. So that's what is the agreement during P.V. Narasimha Rao era. In 2003, Vajpayee era, declaration on principles for relations and comprehensive cooperation between Republic of India and People Republic of China. So that is declaration of principles for relations. For what? Comprehensive cooperation. Next is 2013 during Manmohan Singh era, border defense cooperation agreement that was signed between these two countries. Now, during Vajpayee era, two special representatives were appointed to find a permanent solution to the border question. So, now the Modi, Prime Minister Modi, he requested or he asked for the Chinese clarifications on LOAC, which Vajpayee era stopped in 2005. I mean, it was the negotiations are stopped way back in 2005 because of the effort of Vajpayee government. Now Modi's government wanted to have the special the clarifications from China on LAC. Now in this context, what it has been said is China is more interested for a code of conduct across LOAC rather than providing for clarifications. Why the China is not doing that? China is feared that the LOAC, once clarified, in the future it may be regarded as a permanent boundary. And on the stapled visas, still China is continuing the stapled visas for the people from Arunachal Pradesh. The people-to-people context, so it's one thing which has improved a lot. The Prime Minister Modi's engagement on social media addressed to the university students, which he described as all-pervasive engagement. This is one thing which we have got a good this thing. And on hydrological data, so no improvement on the ground scenario. So even today, China is ready to share the hydrological data related to the floods and emergency management, not more than that. And terrorism, for the first time, we came to an agreement. So on terrorists, it is an important development where a joint statement, what it said is, so the financing of terrorists and cross movement or cross national movement of the terrorists, disruption of the terrorist networks. On these three fronts, the countries will cooperate as per the United Nations and international laws. The three fronts are financing of the terrorism, cross-national movement of the terrorists, networks or disruption of the networks of the terrorists. So on these three fronts, according to the UN and international laws, the countries will cooperate. But Syed Salahuddin and Mr. Lakvi, across these people, India has moved a resolution in United Nations to declare them as global terrorists under 1267 committee. So under this is a committee on Al Qaeda and Taliban terrorism. So this was the China has kept a technical hold on this particular matters. So it means that though there is a cooperation on terrorism, but the movement on the ground did not move forward. But the state-to-state cooperation or subnational engagement is one thing, is a very positive development. It is also a redefining moment for federalism, where a secondary leadership is being developed at the state level. So there is a very redefining moment for the federation, and also Indian political scenario is concerned. Now these are about political scenarios. On economic front, so certain MOUs are signed. So they said to be around 26 MOUs are signed, which are worth of $22 billion. But however, China is promising big everywhere. Pakistan 46 or $48 billion, and next is Brazil around $50 billion. Li Keqiang, when he visited Brazil in May 2015, he promised $50 billion over there. So we cannot rely on them unless they are materialized. And the trade deficit still continues at $48 billion even today, which is a huge amount. So these are the things we need to understand. And move people-to-people engagement and business-to-business, e-visas is one positive development. And next is technology and change. Now the technology is going to disrupt the existing industry, and it is a natural outcome. The typewriter is replaced by the computer. The computer is getting replaced by the tablet. It's a natural outcome. So where the mobility is the rule, any business that can provide for the mobility and convenience can have an existence. The Ola and Uber cabs are two such things. So the safety of individuals with regard to Ola and Uber cabs. So it is safety is a general question over here. So in this case, certain safety mechanisms are being brought in with regard to the use of these apps. And the traditional cab drivers were opposed to them, saying that they are being taking away their earning. But however, they are able to create many car entrepreneurs, the drivers who brought the cars and they made the money, they are making the money out of it. And the second major problem is, though Delhi government has imposed the sanctions on them, so to what extent they have followed is the major question. And third thing, does regulation will help on technology? So if regulation we find as a solution for every problem which is based on technological innovation, ultimately it is going to visit or invite the people's wrath. So the technology is changing the world, how it is getting operated, how businesses are getting redefined. So in this context, the governments have to give the way for the free flow of technology. The regulation of the technology across the world is seen as a retrogressive step and loss of an opportunity. So this is what is about technology. And next is who are regulating the cyberspace. So I always talk about this. So in this article, let's organize this as three things. So how the power equations are changing because of the cyberspace. And the second is who are controlling this cyberspace, what India has to do. These are the three levels we organize. So with coming to the power, now internet and networks are closely associated with redefining of social power, economic power, etc., and political power too. So that's why political parties are hovering around the social media giants. And second thing is, I'll give you a typical example. So in news agencies now they are about to be delivering the news using the Facebook instantaneous news. So in this case, the access of the news is being defined by this. And next is net neutrality is a question of this particular power equation. So it means that every space or every power equation which is existing in the society is getting redefined because of the cyber networks or network architecture and big data. Already I discussed to you about data colonialism, commodification of the data, and also the economic value that is associated with big data. So the decision making in the government, it is getting automatized. So in this process, the decision making of the governments is an exercise which is dependent on management of this big data, which is being managed by the multinational corporations such as Google. So the governance and policy making, it is more and more dependent on a private entity or that is multinational corporation operating from a foreign land. Next is every sector is impacted. It means agricultural sector, education sector, healthcare sector, everything is impacted because of this particular digitalization, networking and dataification. So because of these three processes, so these are the three axes of power which are newly coming up across the world. Now, so please try to see the big data article which I have discussed previously. So I don't know on which date that has come up. I'll try to dig it out. The next one is, I'll try to provide you some notes on that. Next is with regard to the control. So on global networks are this network digital complex, who is managing the control? So everything is being controlled by United States of America. Even the Europe do not have control on the internet and this digital complex. So that's why our freedom of expression, security, issues of sovereignty, all these things, they are being questioned. Now actually China and Russia on one hand, and they tried to control or take over the control of the internet from United States to the international bodies such as UN. So that is International Telecommunication Union. They wanted it to be the controlling authority of ITU, but all the freedom of internet movements, they opposed to this particular shift. So what is the reason why across the globe there is such an opposition? The first thing is the middle class see an opportunity in the growth of this particular internet. So in this context, the middle class generally sees free markets as a benign phenomenon, so as a source of opportunity, and they see excessive state involvement or regulation as a retrogressive step. That's the reason why international organizational control is not being encouraged or seen as a negative of the free internet. So, but however, one country and the corporations in that country controlling the internet as a whole, it is a dangerous phenomenon for sovereignty, opportunity generation now or at a later date. So what India has to do? It has associated with huge power equations. India has to take it up at the global fronts and multinational forums. Recently, European Union and the economic ministers of Germany and France, so they thought about, or they are thinking about general regulatory framework for digital platforms. It means they are trying to bring in some regulation. So a real politic has to work to take the control over the internet. So India has to work along with these basic countries, and also the BRICS countries, and sorry, not the basics, the BRICS countries. India has to work all these nations towards taking the control over internet. And next is BJP is mad against increasing its registrations of members. So why is such a mad race? So what it has been said is the number of votes and the number of registered members, there is no parity. If we see the number of votes polled in Delhi elections and the number of members of BJP in Delhi, there is no parity among this. But however, it is in a mad race towards registering the new people, and it is declared itself as largest political party in the world. What is the reason? The direct communication between the voter has a positive impact with regard to his outcome of decision to whom he has to vote for. So it means that if a telecall and random, not telecall or some SMS, regular SMS, so where the Modi's government victories or else what the BJP is doing, that can create a positive impact. So they are just creating a digital channel of communication between the voters. For that they want to take the personalized data of the people. I just say it as a big data gimmick. And next is Modi's visit to Dhaka. This I have to cover in detail because once the visit is over, then we can get more and more data delivered on this. I will cover to you at that extent. And next is Snowden. So the UN Patriot Act is replaced by UN Freedom Act. So this UN Freedom Act, which not allow NSA to monitor the people or to spy on the tele and internet communications. So what Mr. Snowden, the whistleblower, he says that because of this act, the balance of power will be shifted to the people. And second thing, important thing is, this particular monitoring of the data or monitoring or spying on the people did not improve the security architecture. So the UN, this mass surveillance is a clear violation of the human rights. So these are the people then, even our government, what it is going to do, it is also building this big data and mass surveillance systems. Let us see what happens in our country. And next is re-promulgation of ordinances. So the coalition governments, how it is changing the governance in a country is one of the topic to us. So whenever there are coalition governments, the ordinance route towards enacting the laws is taken up by all the governments from P.V. Narasimha Rao era to Vajpayee era to the Manmohan Singh era. Ordinance route rather than parliamentary route of getting laws is taken up by many governments. So it means the authority of the parliament or bypassing of the parliament has increased during the coalition and weak governments. So that's one point which we can take forward. And soil the source of lead in Maggi. So understand, if you remember in any junction in India for half an hour, you get as much enough of lead you want. That's what my opinion is. Spoiling of the water bodies, especially during Vinayaka or this Ganesh festival, all the water bodies are spoiled. Enamel paintings which we use in our house, they have 1,000 times more lead. We are spoiling our water, air, and everything, and we are worried about something called lead poisoning in Maggi. So whatever be the case. So if you see that the source of lead, it is there, it came from the soil, especially the onion component of the Maggi packets, they have the higher content of the lead. Next is the history project head. So there are, in Bangladesh Liberation War, more than 2,000 Indian soldiers lost their life. Now a project is undertaken in Bangladesh to trace them and to honor them. So that's what is one goodwill gesture which is happening. So let's recollect the things. One is warm contact, lukewarm outcomes. We have discussed them on 3 headings. What are the fault lines? What are the visit? On political components, what is the outcome? On economic components, what is the outcome? And next is, we have discussed about the monsoons and how the more than monsoons or volume of rainfall, distribution of the rainfall is important, timing of rainfall is important, and then what is the other thing? The food management is very much important. That's what we discussed. Then Manipur ambush. So especially the Myanmar cooperation to fight against these extremist elements who are taking a safe den in Manipur is major question. And next is the Defense Ministry and Home Affairs with regard to the management of paramilitary persons. The conflict is also weakening the chain of command with regard to this. The membership mantra of BJP, its objective is different, we already discussed. Who rules the cyberspace? I have already. So what is the impact of this, or how the power equations are changing? We discussed that. What is the role of who is controlling them? How we need to change this situation. And finally, we talked about the Maggie issue. So these are the things. Thank you very much. All the best.